Thank you very much. This is the first talk, as my esteemed colleague Nick Laluc said. He is very graciously introducing the talks, at least this semester. And I have been waiting to present this for a while to the archaeological community. This series of books have been out for 2 years now. But the project itself started many years before, around 2016. So it took a long time to create. So I'm going to talk through sort of how that happened and why I did that. I work in the Andes in the high altiplano plain, which every year I present it, or my team, Millie this time, presents about this. But over those years, I've spent quite a bit of time in the community of Chiripa that you can see in the north side of that peninsula, the Chaco Peninsula. This is a high, dry, steppe area in the high plains of 3,800 meters, around 13,000 feet. And this is the place where people have been through a lot of climate change. The glaciers retreated, people moved in, they followed the animals and the plants, they domesticated some of the animals and the plants. And the ones that you're all familiar with most are the llamas and alpacas. Some of you may be wearing some alpaca today, although probably not, it's still September. And then in the plant realm, primarily, the potato and the quinoa. Those are things that people tend to eat up here. Those have gone global. So so the climate has changed, the glaciers have retreated, the lake has ebbed and flowed a great deal. This area has been conquered a series of times. So they've been through quite a lot. And yet what we see today on the ground is still, some resilience of the farming community hanging in there. Now, the urbanization of this country may do this in. This may be the final straw of this region, but here is just a sense of what it looks like. And so over the years, I've had various projects, directing and co-directing various archaeological projects up there in that region with always a nice, diverse team. And as I was, we've also surveyed this area, and you can see that Chiripa has friends, has nearby neighbors, and so we've been studying that as well, which we continue to study. I'm not the first. My team, our people are not the first. Wendell Bennett worked there, as did Kidder, Americans, along with Portugal and Cordeiro. This region has been, though, quite resilient. And I have gotten to know over these 30 years the community. And every year the leaders change, they rotate. So they have elections. There's 2 IUs. You can see the red box, which is sort of a center. Now, that was the mound, and that's the center of the community over here. This was a hacienda. This is the school. This was sort of the hacienda land, and it has become sort of the center of the community, with each family from the hacienda times, the 1950s, when that was disbanded, they received strips of land. So now the land is privately owned from the lake shore up to the hills. And these families have been, therefore, living a long time in this area. And I have worked with them on various projects. Besides the archaeology, which of course they have an interest in, we've dug over the years various places and depths, and in tandem with local archaeologists as well as the community. We found deep stratification in this area, so we know that this region has been occupied, really settled, I should say, for 3,500 years, when people were really beginning to settle in this region. The dates are later than elsewhere in the Americas and the world because of this, pretty tough climate, rigorous climate. And yet, it looks dry. You look out on this sort of steppe plains, and yet it's incredibly productive. And people have survived and prospered in this region. Various sites. This is where we dig. This is the core of Chiripa, just to give you a sense, because too much of that. We've also had open days, worked with the school children, interacted with them over the years. This is just one example. and built a community museum down in Chiripa. Again, the community requested that, and so the project took that on, and we did it sort of as a joint project over the years. Now there's a second museum that they want to build, and where the project is working with them on that. But all this is to say that throughout my time completing archaeology there with the community and for myself and our project and for the Bolivian archaeologists, we've also engaged with them. This is the inside of the first iteration of that museum. I've also worked with various artists, I guess I could call them, who have tried to reconstruct the archaeology. This is, of course, global. People do this all over, and you can see several examples. You can see a picture of a literal reconstruction. That is, back in 2002, a group of Bolivian archaeologists for the Ministry of Culture came in and reconstructed the inside of the mound into what they thought was their likeness. And you can see two examples of archaeological reconstruction that are digital, and those are based on a series of sites, but primarily this site. So over the years, we've tried to help the community learn about their past and engage with it. I didn't put in a picture, but the community just created a diorama of this over the last year with, little people and little buildings. It was really quite spectacular. So they're constantly engaging with trying to envision their past. And towards that end, after that museum, the community, the leaders, the Malkus, the leaders of the community suggested that we interview people in the community about their lives in the community. And so Maria Bruno, who is here in the blue jacket, and myself, that's me in the end, we were the co-PIs at that time, and we took it upon ourselves to find some funds to do this. And so we spent 2 field seasons not doing archaeology, in this case, not surveying, not excavating, not working in the lake, doing paleoecology, but doing ethnography for the community and with the community, obviously. And so each team had us two, because we were holding microscopes and cameras, and a local person, in this case, Jose Luis, and then Charlie. Each team had a Bolivian ethnographer with us, a trained Bolivian ethnographer, because we're archaeologists. Not that we don't interact with people, but we worked with them, and they also speak Aymara as well. So we had these 2 teams that went off and interviewed different parcels of land, and we just, the community had met. They meet monthly, and they'd known about this, and we were doing this for the community. They agreed on what we were asking, which was mainly what people did during their day, where they went, where their fields were, what was their sort of cycle during the year, coming and going across the landscape, really how they engaged with the landscape. And we recorded videos, we recorded the voice, and we had the person, if they agreed, which most of them did, wear a GoPro. So when they were showing us the landscape, we'd have that view as well. Now, all that data takes a long time to organize, and we're slowly working on that. We've gotten no funding towards that project, but we did, in the first couple of years, produce some videos for the community because we thought that was really important. Maria oversaw that, and we gave those videos to the community, and they're in the school to be used for the school children to learn about their past. And one is in the museum with no language, just pretty music that was produced there for visitors to learn about it. So we've done sort of the first round, but we're working on transcribing these tapes, transcribing them first, most of them in Aymara, and Charlie is helping that, translating those into Spanish. So that there's a document that people can work with, and students can use that going forward, especially as increasingly this area is speaking Spanish. They're going to high school and university in the city and all of that. So So the elders, the Malco of the community were really keen on doing this. Now, this was all before COVID, which was also terrific because, of course, as you know, a lot of elders didn't make it through COVID. Obviously, us elders do continue to die. But we're fortunate that a whole bunch of these people we did interview are still present with us. So it's great to see them again when we go back. So here we are, just examples of chatting and interviewing, and you can see the GoPro over here on his head, and you can see her GoPro right there as Charlie's standing there. So we did that for 2 seasons, and we learned some amazing things. This is one of my favorite examples, Facundo Yusco, who's we're compadres. He was standing up in a valley, and you can see this little spring he's standing by, and he told us that at that spring, the wildcat guardian spirits protect it, so that the job of the humans is to protect the springs, so the wildcat guardian spirits will protect the springs, so the water continues to flow. And as you can tell, this is a dry environment, a dry xerophytic environment. So these, and they're very rare. I had to get this off the web, this picture. I've never seen a wildcat up there, but it kind of looks like a house cat in some way here, but a little bit wilder than that. Quite wonderful. I would love to see one someday. Anyway, so we learned many things. So I decided during this ethnographic time, working on that and tallying things up and recording where we interviewed, recording where the fields were linked to the people. I wanted to, well, I wrote it up here. Gosh, I've already written it for you. I wanted to get something for the fields, for the school children, more than just us standing there and showing the archaeology. And so I tried for several years actually in La Paz to find an illustrator. And the only person I came up with there was a Frenchman. And I thought, well, if I'm going to be dealing with a Frenchman, I might as well deal with someone who I know is really good. It's not that there aren't illustrators in Bolivia, but they were just too busy. They didn't want to do this project. They didn't have the time then to do it because there's quite a vibrant comic book scene there, which is really wonderful. So I sought out colleague John Swogger, and this is his drawing of himself. And he has illustrated many things. If you look on his site, you will see that he's done many things. I just threw some pictures of his drawings. This is one book I'm going to talk about in the next slide. And everything he does, which includes the books that we did together, are Creative Commons license. And we also used, for the American print, we first printed the first version in English here in the US to kind of make sure it was working, and it looked all right. We used a tribal press in Southern California that he knew. So that was really, really great. And Sonia Altalay, who has worked with him a lot, and John and I had all worked on a project in the 2000s in Turkey. So we'd all known each other for quite a while. And I knew he was working with Sonia. I'd seen him now and again at meetings. But he is, as you see, I took this quote from his site, and he's worked all over the globe on this. These are just some pictures when I met him that he had done of reconstructions. And these 2 images actually are from an article he did of Sonia Altalay and I on cooking. And you can see that they're quite evocative. So I turned to him, and he's a busy guy. And so it took a couple of years to get going. He's done this is from this one's from Sonia's book on NAGPRA. He has a series of books on describing NAGPRA, but he also has, here's one on radiocarbon dating, and this one's on American veterans and archaeology. I mean, so all over the place. And then also this is on sort of archaeology and what archaeology does. So I knew he's an archaeologist by training and also an illustrator. So we had a lot of conversations. We talked we talked together. I just put this in to make sure you got this. I had a sort of an outline of a story based on the archaeological evidence that we found at the in the sites in the area. I sort of thought that I wanted to focus it on a youngish girl, a teenage girl, have that as the focus. I knew that, and I wanted, and then we had to have some events happen to this girl to sort of illustrate things. I knew I wanted to have a harvest. I knew I wanted to have people go out on the lake. And I knew I wanted to have visitors, traders come in with a llama caravan. Now we have some evidence. I shouldn't say that. We have some evidence we have clear evidence of trade. We're not sure if the people who live in these places went to places and brought things back, or if traders came, but we know that trading is a long-lived, caravan trading is a long-lived, we have long-lived evidence across the Andes. So I had this, so we made a storyboard together. We talked a lot and sketched this out. This is actually, a synthesis we made. We agreed on how many pages it was. We agreed we were going to write it first in English and get it all set up, and he was going to make sure there was big spaces. Then we would translate that into Spanish and translate that into Aymara, which is in fact what we did. So I'm going to now focus on that, and I'm going to hand these out. I have copies if you want the English. I don't have extra copies of the Spanish and Aymara. I'm going to send those out and send those around so you can take a look at them. They have the same images, it's just we did them in different languages. So the story tensions, we have the death of her mother, and so we have a preparation of a burial in the mound, because we had found this amazing burial as we were digging down in the mound in 2006. That was very evocative to me. It was between the sort of use areas. It was sort of almost like an offering as they were rebuilding the mound. But there are also a lot of subfloor burials there. So we had a series of events. We have the caravan traders, we have the boat trip to visit their relations on an island. There's little islands in the lake and people live on those islands today. The survey has been done, no archaeology excavation has been done there, but we know people have been living on those islands over time. So we have them having relations with them, which people do today. And then we have the burial, and also the sort of activities around the family. So we had all these things. So he's sort of, so then I had to get, he wasn't there in the Altiplano, so I had to send him a lot of images, which I did. I just have many, many images. So I'm just sharing some of the images that I sent to him. One, what the lake really looks like, that there's tortora, forests, if you will. There's, various boats. These are certainly the older boats now. They're Spanish wooden boats. So we don't want Spanish if we can help it. In this, what the hillsides look like, the grass, what the ground looks like. He really needed to know what all that was like. And then the sort of the plain near the lake and the areas, the springs and the little patches that people have dug up to use that area. In fact, they use those areas to process their tubers. So they're very, very important, those little springs by the lake. And then also a series of artifacts, and I'm just giving you one page of some artifacts. And one thing he did is he put in Tiwanaku pots, a later time period pots, and those had to be vetoed, and he had to redraw it and put in pots. So I had to send him more pots and make sure. So I was checking that we had the correct archaeology for the time period, which was middle formative. And the carvings. Yeah, here's the process. Sorry, that skipped one, sorry. So here's how they use the little pools down by the lake, and they process it and all that. So I wanted to have some of that. This is again from the ethnographic work we had done. And then also the traditional tools. This is from a wonderful museum actually in Chinchero that I worked in that community one summer, 2011, with Stella Nair on a historic house. She's an architect. But this was a great exhibit of all the different tools, beautifully made of wood, which of course as an archaeobotanist I love. So, and then also houses and also constructions. These houses come from just south of the lake. They're down in the plain near Lake Popo. This is a local roof. That's also the down in the south as well, the Urus who live down there, their houses. And then this is a sort of a local kind of picture of how the mats are used. So that using of the local material, both the dirt and sod, as well as the plants to make roofs, I wanted to make sure he had a sense of that. So I had to gather these pictures, hopefully close by. And then also, what might the people have worn and look like? And so now there's none from exactly the time period. Well, there's one pot, but from exactly the time period, but there's a lot from the next time period. And so we use these from the late formative and the middle horizon. And these are pots from an island in the lake. So really very close. And you can see, we see the hairstyle of the women. We see that they're wearing tunics, they have belts, and then they're wearing these mantas. So we had a good sense of what people were wearing. And that some men wore little hats, others just wrapped their hats, etc. And that the people this is someone from the Amazon, that they had different features and they wore labrettes. We don't have a lot of evidence of Highland labrettes. And then this tomb that we excavated in 2006. And again, this is, we had the stones, but not the body. We just had the stone, but we knew that this is what burial chambers look like. So I presented all of that to him. So with that, he started crafting things and we go back and forth and spent quite a bit of time. This was the first iteration of the front page. And if you've gotten the book yet, you'll see that's not what it is. The first and foremost thing that you all agree with right away is what? Her dress is too short. He went in for short dress, and I tried really hard, and they're still too short. But I fought that battle so much that I couldn't fight it 3 times. So you can see, if you look at the book, that her dress is still shorter than I'd like, and shorter than I'm sure it was. But this was way too short. And also, this word kara wasn't in the Aymara language, whereas kaira is. It means frog, which is a very important, powerful being. We had to really work with that, as well as the artifacts. So anyway, we ended up with much work on Kaira and her story. And he, draw things and send them back to me, and I try and help and correct. And then, but he also is, because he's done other books like this before, he was really terrific. And if you look at the book, you'll see that not only do we have at the front, we have this, what you see there in the middle, sort of a statement of thanks to everybody who's involved, all the people that have been involved in the project and the community there. But then in the back, there's also some information in the different languages about the excavations there, so that if a student wanted to follow along, they could learn more in these different languages. And this, I have to say, this was another issue. This is actually a middle horizon image of a hallucinogenic plant, but it is cool. So I let it go. I mean, a little bit. We think that plant came in. We just don't have the smoking gun yet. Anyway, so here's just a couple of pages that I put up here for you to see. And I start with the English, and then I switch to the Aymara. You can get a sense of what it looks like. But you can see how he used the Lake Popo houses as a template. And the hair, trying to create the hairstyle that we see on those beautiful Pariti women. And the pot, and sort of a simple pot that she's bringing with the water. And we have a grandmother, a mother who's giving birth, and the young girl. And so the story goes along, and the mother dies in childbirth, but the baby lives. And so the family is mourning, of course, and they're organizing a burial in the mound, because she was a knower. She was a shaman. I guess most people use that word. She was someone who knew the herbs and knew how to cure people, right? So the question in the Andes, and from our ethnographic work and our own experience, I've asked and interviewed, they're called Yatiris, and I've learned from the Yatiris of how they became Yatiris, and there's different ways. You can dream yourself into it. you can inherit it, or you can be struck by lightning and survive. So I have her being struck by lightning. So they go, and to do that, John and I decided they're going out to the community on the lake. Let's see what time it is. I have no idea where we are. Oh, we're still okay. We go out on the lake and they talk to the people about, life, and also the situation with the family and the community, and the people, the family out on the lake in the village agrees to come. And then on their way back, a storm comes up. And that's where, I don't know if I even kept, yes, I did. This is, I think, just an amazing visual image that John did. And this is where essentially she gets, into the water, but you can tell again that she gets saved, right? And the lightning is all around. And so obviously she's not doing well, but they go home. And again, I don't show you all the pictures, they're in the book, and she ends up feeling better. And then they get organized. They're bringing food together for this gathering that's going to be burying this woman. And along those lines, one day, the traders arrive. And so here are the traders, and you can see they look different from the local people a bit. First of all, they're wearing orange and their cloaks are different, and they have beautiful sodalite beads. And we know they traded sodalite beads because we have them in the excavations. In fact, this is a nice drawing. I've now switched to Aymara. So if you're looking at screen, you can't read the words, probably, unless you know Aymara. And we have, young men playing games and seeing the guys arrive. Here they are processing, just like that photograph I showed you, processing the tubers, and they step on them in the late afternoon to freeze dry them. And then they're also drying the meat. This is what they do. They dry the meat, they freeze dry. What we know is jerky. That was very pro forma for them. They've been doing that for many years, thousands. And then all the trade items, and they're here, and they trade things back and forth, and various things happen. So we have lots of sort of events. And then of course, Kyra has to sort of cope, right? And has to deal with things. And so she, talks to people, she talks to the mountains, she listens to the wind, various sort of ontologically appropriate things. Again, from the ethnographic work, we talked about things moving through the air. I've done a series of rituals myself for my own family, curing myself and my son and my mother. And so through those experiences with this community, I've learned about various processes. They're making chicha beer over there, etc. So they're continuing on. I just wanted to make sure I showed you a picture of what his reconstruction of the mound. And I mean, I could quibble about some of these things. There's definitely things I could, but all in all, he worked so hard and he did such a good job. I kind of left that as is. We're quite sure that the walls were actually plastered and painted, but there we go. And they're preparing the burial, building the burial chamber that we have excavated. So I try and incorporate as much archaeology as I can. And this is sort of the burial of the mother in the bottom of a room. And here's a room actually excavated by Bennett in the 1930s, one of these sort of community rooms. And so we have her spending the night with her mother, and she takes vilca seeds, ground vilca seeds, which she sort of is hallucinating to be transformed, to sort of take in the spirit of her mother. I mean, that's not being said, but that's what I'm telling you. That's sort of what's going on. All these things are happening to her. She's thinking all these thoughts as she's lying there in this room, in her burial chamber. So then, as I said, at the end, we have a little statement about the project itself, some readings that they can read, and kind of like the class this afternoon, how do we know what we know? How do we get our meaning? So there was a lot of sort of real archaeology in there, but also incorporating material from from the community. And then what I did is once we published it here with this press, I guess it's on the first page. The press is on that first page, sorry. With this press here in California, we then took the digital copy. And by the way, all 3 copies are free online. You can download your own digital copy and have as many copies as you want. We then published it in Bolivia through my colleague, Jose Capriles. He knew a press there in La Paz, and we took it to the press. I took those digital copies. And well, first of all, oops, that's typo, sorry. First of all, Jose translated this into Spanish. And then Charlie, the person, and Denise Arnold, who's a colleague of mine, who's an ethnographer, worked on, translated the Aymara. So we had those copies and we printed those and then took them out to the communities and gave them to every school child at the schools, you know, talked to the professors, said, we're here and here they are, and you can have many copies. And we gave them, this is just last summer, we were giving copies to another school that we worked in. There's 3 communities that this project has worked in. So we gave it to the school children, all 3, but it's about only one of those communities, that is Chiripa. But the kiddies seem to enjoy it, and it's brightly colored and kind of informative. And we also gave copies to everybody who works with us in all the Malkus of these different communities, so that they had copies. And we talked to the professors and hoped that maybe kids could make their own. You know, they said, when's the next one coming out? That was the first thing they said, we want the next one. And we said, well, that's you can do this now. You know, you can use your own knowledge and make your own. And I don't know if that has happened, but that's sort of was my hope. I just put this in. This is something I found on his website. He also does sort of seedy things or bad things too. I don't know. That's not a nice thing to look at. Sorry. So with that, I'll thank you for your attention. I just wanted to share this process that it took a long time to get going, but once we really got going, it went pretty fast. But it was very helpful to have someone who actually knew about archaeology and cope with things archaeological. So I give a lot of thanks to John Swogger. And I guess I could probably do a second volume, but I just haven't gotten back to that yet. So thank you very much for attending, and I'm happy to address any questions you might have. And you can have a copy if you want. Because I printed them out and I've been giving them away. There's no money involved.
Really great presentation, and thank you for laying out that process. You know, you gave me a copy last year and read the English read, and I just had a lot of those questions about how it's related to research and work and so forth. So it was really interesting. Just one quick question: what kind of demand is there for the Aymara version, and who is getting it? Who wants it?
Yeah, well, we should have collected the data. I gave the Aymara versions to the children. And then when the people who are working with us from the community, when we paid them once a week. And we'd say, do you want the Spanish or Aymara? And I wish we'd collected that data, because some of them took the Aymara and some of them took the Spanish. But I don't have that. I don't have that data. I can tell you I ran out of Aymara version faster than I ran out of the Spanish version. Yes. So I ended up, I felt a little sad. The elder kids, you're seeing the younger kids here, but I have there's more pictures of the more teenagers. And they even said, you know, they're taking English, so they'd say thank you and stuff. It was really sweet and shake my hand. But they got the Spanish version because I'd run out of the Aymara by then, by this last visit. So you can see even they had the Spanish. So I did, yeah, that Aymara went faster.
Such a great thing, and I know what an extraordinary effort, commitment that is to kind of get something like this produced. So I really commend you for that.
Well, I'm sure there's lots of problems with it, and people could deconstruct it. I can deconstruct it, but.
Maybe one more question. How common is it for other archaeologists, other projects to do these kinds of work? Any examples?
Well, I think increasingly so. I mean, I have to admit, a colleague of mine who works in Peru, John Rick, who works at Chavin, he had a book that was a kind of graphic novel too, that had a big story, and it was very hallucinatory. And that was quite popular. And so that, it's sort of happening around, at least in the Andes, there are people doing that. But usually, if it's not working with or by an archaeologist, the material in these graphic novels don't tend to be, they're anachronistic, or they're mixing metaphors, or, because unless you're an archaeologist, you don't think of the timeline and the material in it. So I'm quite sure, I mean, he goes to Comic Cons and presents, because he has books, like I said, of topics all over the place, from, New Zealand archaeology to veterans archaeology. He would be able to answer that question, how much, but my impression is it's increasingly becoming something people are involved in and interested in. And I enjoyed doing it. It took a long time. It was a way that the community and I agreed would be one more way to help kind of bring this place's past to them, because they can see the stones and they can see the digs, but it's hard to put it in a kind of a worldview, or at least a lived life, I guess I should say.
Thanks, Christine. That was really cool. I had two sort of small questions. One was that you were saying that Bolivia already has this kind of culture of comic books. And then you were mentioning like John Rick's project in the Andes also used this same kind of method of outreach. And I was wondering if you've seen that also in other parts of the world, like outside California also. And the other thing, and like how much you think that this kind of medium is important to this particular cultural context.
I think, I don't know if John ever did a graphic novel at Chatal. I have no idea. He moved on, and another person, Katie Kalaki, who was my former student, by the way. I don't know if if there's a graphic novel from there, I don't know it. I haven't seen it, so I can't help you with that. I know he's worked on other projects, so he's done, but he's not the only one, I'm sure, out there drawing such things. Are there any in Greece that you know of?
No, there aren't, and I think it's so cool. Like, I would love to do something like this for a project in Greece. I've never seen anything like it, and I think it would be really, really interesting. Although I don't think Greece has the same comic book culture, which is why I was curious about that. And then I was also sort of wondering, like, what kind of funding you got for this work, and I think this is the kind of thing that projects should be doing, but it's, I assume you had to pay the artist.
I got not a penny of funding.
Yeah.
So I paid for it myself, and I had to pay him. Yes, I had to pay him, and I had to pay for the printing, and I had to pay for the shipping.
Yeah, it would just be great.
I just paid it out of my own pocket.
Yeah, like that's amazing that you did that. It would be so nice if there were also more grants.
Maybe, the thing is, after this is sort of a sideline, but so we did this ethnographic project sort of by the seat of our pants. And we had various, Stahl, thank you very much, Stahl, for that. And we wrote 3 times. I wrote 3 grants, 3 years, 3 cycles to the humanities, and was rejected every time, because what's an archaeologist? Why is an archaeologist doing this ethnography? Because I wasn't doing ethnoarchaeology. I was just doing ethnography for what the community wanted, which is, of course, what we are telling our students people should be doing. And I got totally shot down. So I realized, well, we're just going to have to hunker down and do it, which is why I'm now trying, up on my site, it opens next month. I'm trying again for money to transcribe those materials. Now, out of the ones we did transcribe, and out of the stories I did hear that I could understand in our interviews, I could use that to make some of these stories, these books. I didn't put in the more crazier things, which were wonderful, these flying lights, these dragons that fly through the air, and all that, which were absolutely fabulous. I could do another book on that. It turns out is Andean wide. It's all over the place. And the power locations in the landscape. I mean, I didn't get really close to their, what I consider slightly more secret or personal information. I kept it really archaeological. Just, processing potatoes, that's pretty uniform across the highlands. So I didn't kind of enter in. I mean, if I wanted to, which John was much more involved in that, if I wanted to do that, I would definitely be working actually with the community. I mean, they would have to say, you can put this in or that, and maybe in a couple of years after I've gotten through all the curation I have to do, I can get back to doing it again. But I think if I wrote a grant again, I might try and include that in, but after this failed 3 years of not getting money, we wrote in NSF and of course got the NSF to dig again. They're perfectly happy to let me dig again, but not to do more ethnographic work, which in itself was a bit of an eye opener. So yeah, no, I paid for every penny of it. Please.
For the presentation, it was really beautiful. I was curious about, you mentioned how the graphic novel was kind of a proposal to help bring, I guess, dialogues about the past to the community. And I was wondering if how does the community relate to their past, right? Like, does this happen in oral spaces, in oral tradition? How are kids engaging with these stories, these past, right?
Well, we haven't gone back and interviewed the children, which we could do now that they, have had the book for a while. That would be fun. But I do know that the community, including the children, engage with their archaeological landscape. They're very aware that that's an archaeological site. It's a place that tourists can come and visit. So they see buses come through and visit this site. And they also use that mound that you saw had one picture and then a series of reconstructions that is used for the community ceremonies. So they experience the mound that was a center, a ritual ceremonial center in the formative. They are now, because it has been Broman, in fact, I didn't include him. I'm so sorry. He's another person who the Ministry of Culture told him he had to empty it. So it had been filled in. So there wasn't a sunken enclosure, and now there is. So since that happened in the 70s, the community actually now is reusing the same formative ceremonial space, that part of the ceremonies, not all of the ceremonial space, but that part of it they are reusing because it was opened up. So I think the children are aware of their formative roots, if you will. And, when we present our open days and things, we talk about what we're finding and how it's like the food they're eating now. I mean, not the noodles, of course, but the other food that they eat. So they're aware, I think, of the kind of long-lived resilience of people living on that landscape.
I was wondering about how big was the print run? It's hard to anticipate sometimes.
Oosh, gosh. I think I did 250 of this in a box. And then the ones down there, I think we did 300 each. The one I did Spanish and Aymara, yeah.
And have you distributed them on the west side and the Caribbean side of the lake?
No, I don't go. I just fly into La Paz. I don't go to Peru. Sorry. I know, but I stay in Bolivia and then I fly out. I don't go overland. Somebody can do that. Anyway, any other? Oh, sorry. Okay, yes, one more.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is such a cool project, way to give back to the community. But I also think it's a wonderful synthetic exercise, it sounds like. And I was wondering if the creation collaboration process, did it prompt any new questions for you, or
reveal any assumptions, or did you find it was difficult to aspect or to translate sort of some aspects of formative life to illustration?
Was it difficult to translate? I didn't feel it insurmountable. I mean, I felt like, we had to take time. There was homework to be done. I spent years long before this. I mean, this has been brewing for a long time, like for at least 15 years, but I didn't kind of get going until the ethnography because I'd been taking photographs of different activities and, structures that looked, long-lived on the landscape or, just various things around the landscape so that when the time came, I could sort of, I'd stay up late at night and try and pull these pictures together from various years to send him so that there was some homework involved. But he doesn't know what I didn't give him. So if there's things I wanted to give him that I just couldn't give him, he just doesn't know that. So I gave him as much as I could, but I know he also talked to Katie, who has worked in this area, who is another illustrator and has actually worked on this project of a series of years. So Katie was very helpful too, because she could talk about what, as an illustrator, she'd seen there. So that was really helpful. And what was your other aspect of the question? Is there anything I learned from it? Well, just seeing your site kind of, seeing the houses, I think that's the thing I have the most discomfort with, because I'm just not sure those are what the houses look like, because we've had so little trace of houses that I feel like I'm standing out on the thinnest limb on those, sadly. So I think I learned to be uncomfortable with that visualization. Still very uncomfortable about that. Okay, one more question. Let's see if I can go back. Oh, I can't. How do I know? How do I see that? I'll go back to, this is one of my favorite pictures.
Here we go.
Oh dear.
Yes, I think I got most of it.
Hi. There are quite a few other graphic novels, such as the one on the move of people across the Bering Land Bridge and several about the cave at Chauvet. This must be Meg. I'm guessing, I don't know, is it? Maybe we'll see. Someone even did a graphic novel on the book Sapiens. Of course, we know about the comic books that Sonia Altalai has done. Can't see the rest of the message.
Oh, it's on, I think it's on that front Thanksgiving.
But there's more. And Thanksgiving. So I'm assuming that's from Megan. I mean, there are books all over the place. Like I said, he goes to these Comic-Cons and he probably knows the range and variability of the books out there. And that is one thing I could do more of, but I just got a lab to work in. So I haven't. Is that it's a good comment. Yeah, so some French, there's some French.
I just wanted to make a last comment, which actually follows along, since I was the one who worked on the Bering Strait.
Oh, book.
That's just someone who's done a similar collaboration with a graphic novelist. I really appreciate the effort that goes into the detail of like every little bit of the visual aspect of it. But also the point at which you just have to let go and let it be creative.
Yeah, let him have his say. I mean, yeah.
And the
Mhm.
effort of getting a story out there.
Yeah, it's like finishing a paper. Can't be a perfectionist. You just want to get that published, right? For the dissertation.
But I also just wanted to add, as someone who's also read your book, and so has son Ollie, we both very much appreciated it. And the first thing he asked me was when he was gonna get the next one.
Yeah, just what the kids in Tadipa came up to see the day after we gave them the book. When's the next one? So. Yes, when's the next one? I don't know. Thank you very much. Yes, okay. I think with that, we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you so much for coming, and whoever came on Zoom, thank you for being there. And please come tomorrow. The talk is going to be absolutely fabulous. I spent the evening with the artist and riveting. It'll be wonderful. And do come next week too. That too will be riveting. So bring your friends. we'll have treats. So thank you very much.